Single dad was paid to ruin a blind date with a dwarf girl, but her reaction changed everything. This is the story of how the worst decision of his life became the beginning of something he never saw coming. A chance at genuine connection forged in the ashes of utter shame. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel and knowing who we're sharing this journey with. Amelia's wasn't just expensive. It was a hushed, exclusive bubble where wealth was assumed. The kind of place where soft, intricate jazz played in the background, carefully modulated so as not to interrupt quiet negotiations, and the wine list was presented without prices, suggesting that asking would be gauche. Cormac Henley felt like an imposter the moment he stepped through the heavy wooden door, which was flanked by polished brass fixtures. His one decent blue dress shirt, freshly laundered but already showing its age, suddenly felt flimsy and cheap under the warm, pervasive amber lighting of the foyer. His palms were slick with nervous sweat, not just from the deceit he was about to commit, but from the sheer intimidation of the setting. The impeccable hostess led him through the main dining room, navigating past couples leaning close over flickering candlelight, past groups of suited businessmen nursing dark scotch and finalizing deals with quiet authority. She guided him toward a secluded corner table where a woman sat alone, Carrera Collins. She was even more striking in person than in the blurred phone photo Bryce had dismissively shown him. Platinum blonde hair framed her delicate features in soft, purposeful waves, and she wore a deep garnet red dress that made her look stunning, an elegant contrast to the room's muted palette. She sat in a chair fitted with a custom, tailored cushion, her phone resting in her small, capable hands. For just a fleeting second before she looked up, Cormac saw something utterly vulnerable in her expression. A tremor of genuine hope, perhaps, or a fragile anticipation he recognized instantly. Then she saw him. The transformation was immediate and brutal. Her expression shifted in rapid succession. From expectation to sharp confusion, confusion dissolving into chilling recognition, and recognition hardening into something cold, sharp, and profoundly defensive. Cormac's stomach dropped like a stone, knowing he was already far too late. "You're not Vance," she stated flatly, the name sounding like an accusation. Cormac froze halfway to the table, paralyzed by her directness. "No, I'm not." She set her phone down with a deliberate, precise movement. Her gaze was unflinching. "I've seen his picture. His sister showed me. So what is this? I can explain. Can you?" Her voice rose just enough, not shouting, but carrying a thread of controlled hysteria, that the well-dressed couple at the next table subtly glanced over. "Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like some kind of cruel joke. Did Vance send you here to mock the dwarf girl who actually thought someone wanted to have dinner with her?" The word hit him like a physical slap, yet it wasn't cruel in her delivery. She'd said it matter-of-factly, reclaiming the descriptor, but the crushing weight of resignation behind it was devastating. It suggested this wasn't the first time. It suggested she had learned, through a lifetime of pain, to expect this. "It's not like that," Cormac tried to assure her, but even as the hollow words left his mouth, he knew they offered no comfort. "Then what is it like?" She tilted her head slightly, and there was a fierce, protective fire in her eyes now, something that refused to look away or crumble. "Enlighten me. What's the punchline I'm missing tonight?" Cormac sank into the chair across from her because his legs suddenly refused to bear the weight of his guilt and exhaustion. The smart, pragmatic thing to do, the thing Bryce had planned, would have been to conjure some elaborate lie about a mix-up, a misunderstanding, anything that would allow him to salvage the situation, complete the mission, and collect the miserable $600 promised. But looking at her, at the dignified fury etched into her expression, at the way her hands were clenched tightly in her lap as if she were physically holding her composure together, he couldn't do it. "There's no punchline," he said quietly, his voice barely audible over the distant jazz. "Then what are you doing here?" The simple question hung heavy and unforgiving in the expensive air between them. Cormac took a deep, shaky breath. "I was paid to come here. Vance didn't want to go on this date, so he paid me to show up instead. The plan was for me to be so excruciatingly boring or awkward that you'd never agree to be set up on a blind date again." The The silence that followed was absolute, suffocating. Kara stared at him with an intensity that suggested she was trying to discern if he was a phantom or truly real. "You were paid," she repeated slowly, articulating each syllable, "to sabotage my date." "Yes, yes," she laughed, but the sound was sharp and brittle, devoid of any genuine humor. "Well, at least you're honest about being horrible." "I never planned to mock you," Cormac quickly interjected, leaning forward. "I never planned to be cruel. I was just supposed to be forgettable." "Oh, well, that makes it so much better," she countered, the sarcasm biting. Her eyes were bright now, glistening, but she maintained an iron control, refusing to let the tears fall. "Do you have any idea what it's like to spend your entire life having to prove you're worthy of basic human decency? To have people look at you and see a punchline before they see a person?" "No," Cormac admitted, the shame heavy on his tongue. "I don't. I've heard every joke, every careless comment. I've been stood up, catfished. I've had men take bets on who could get me to go home with them." Her voice cracked just slightly on the last word. "I stopped dating 2 years ago because I got tired of finding out that every single person was either fetishizing me, or just humoring me, or setting me up for some elaborate viral joke." Cormac felt something cold and hard settle deep in his chest, a recognition of the damage he'd just inflicted. "And tonight," Kara continued, her voice gaining strength, "tonight, I actually thought maybe this time would be different." Vance's sister seemed genuine. She talked about him like he was a good person, like maybe he wouldn't see me as a novelty or a charity case. She grabbed her purse, pulling out her wallet with decisive speed. "So, congratulations. You earned your $600. I don't want the money." "Sure you don't." She stood up, pulling her bag onto her shoulder with sharp, angry movements. "Let me guess. You're gonna tell me you have some sad story that's supposed to make me feel sorry for you? Some reason that makes this completely okay?" Cormac stood too, meeting her gaze across the table. "I have a daughter," he stated, his voice flat and factual. 7 years old. Her mother passed away 3 years ago from a rare autoimmune disease that bankrupted us. I have $47 in my checking account. The electricity is about to get shut off. My daughter needs new shoes because her toes are literally pushing through the front of the worn ones she has. $600 was the difference between making rent this month and not making rent. He wasn't attempting to make excuses or solicit pity. He was simply, finally, answering her question with the brutal truth she demanded. Kara stopped moving entirely. For a long, searing moment, she just looked at him, absorbing the scope of his desperation. "So, I'm supposed to feel sorry for you," she finally said, her tone dangerously neutral. "Because you have a sad story?" "No," said Cormac. "You're not supposed to feel anything. I'm just telling you the truth. Because after lying to you by showing up here, it's the least you deserve." She studied his face meticulously, like she was trying to decipher text written in a language she didn't quite speak. "You know what the worst part is? I didn't create myself. I didn't choose to be born with achondroplasia, but I've spent my entire life having to prove that I'm worthy of basic respect, over and over again, to people who look at me and decide I'm less than human." "You're not less than anything," Cormac insisted, stepping slightly closer. "Don't," she held up a restraining hand. "Don't try to make yourself feel better by saying things you think I want to hear. I'm not. I need to leave. I need to not be here." "Kara, I'm sorry." She looked at him one last time, and her expression was complex, layered, and nearly impossible to read. There was anger, yes, and hurt, absolutely, but beneath it was something else. Something that looked devastatingly like disappointment in the human race. "If fate decides we should cross paths again," she said quietly, her voice regaining its low, powerful resonance, "maybe we'll talk then. But right now I need to go." She walked out with her head held high, weaving confidently between the tables and the leaning, intimate diners with the kind of practiced, effortless grace that only comes from a lifetime of navigating a world physically built for people twice her size. Cormac stood there, surrounded by the soft jazz and the scent of expensive wine and the comfortable presence of people who belonged in places like this, and felt the immense weight of what he'd done settle on his shoulders like a physical burden. A cautious waiter approached. "Sir, would you like to order?" "No," Cormac said, collecting his coat. "I'm leaving." He walked out into the cold March night where the wind immediately sliced through his thin, good shirt and made his eyes water violently. Or maybe the wind wasn't entirely to blame. The next morning, driven by a desperate need to cleanse the stain of the night before, Cormac drove to Bryce Keller's polished, modern office in downtown Wilmington. Bryce worked out of a newly renovated brick building that probably cost more per square foot than Cormac made in 5 years of grinding shifts. The receptionist, a pristine woman with sculpted eyebrows, looked at him like he'd tracked mud across her spotlessly clean floor, but she eventually buzzed him through when he muttered that Bryce was expecting him. "Mac." Bryce looked up from his sleek computer screen, a broad, triumphant grin splitting his face. "How'd it go? Did she buy the whole clueless act?" Cormac silently set $600 in crumpled cash, 3 $20 bills and a small stack of hundreds, on the vast glass desk. Bryce's grin instantly evaporated. "What's this? The deal's off." "What are you talking about? You already went on the date." "She knew I wasn't Vance the second she saw me." Cormac's voice was hollow. "She's not stupid, and I'm not doing this." "You already did it, Mac. The money's yours. A done deal." "I don't want it." Cormac turned to leave the air-conditioned opulence. "You're really gonna walk away from $600 over some girl you don't even know?" Bryce demanded, incredulous. Cormac paused at the door, his hand resting on the cool metal handle. "Yeah, I am." He left Bryce sitting there, staring at the small, humiliating pile of cash like it held the secret to the illogical decision that had just been made. Outside, the morning was bright, clear, and painfully cold. Cormac sat in his battered car for a long time, his hands gripping the steering wheel, trying futilely to figure out why returning the money didn't make him feel even marginally better. His phone buzzed, vibrating painfully against the console. A text message from his landlord. "Rent is due in 3 days. Don't make me come looking for it." Cormac closed his eyes and desperately tried to remember how to take a calming breath. 5 days later, Cormac was at the Wilmington Public Library with Poppy. It was their Saturday morning ritual, the one beautiful constant in a life that currently felt like it was held together with tattered duct tape and half-remembered prayer. The library was Poppy's favorite place in the whole world. She loved the way it smelled, a comforting mix of old paper, warm dust, and the promise of untold possibility. She adored the children's section with its bright rainbow carpet and bean-bag chairs shaped like oversized, friendly animals. Most of all, she loved that it was entirely free. "Daddy, did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts?" Poppy announced, looking up from a vibrant book about ocean animals, her face wrapped with discovery. "That's so many hearts. Maybe they have a lot of love to give," Cormac suggested, smiling faintly. Poppy considered this, her face scrunching up in deep concentration. "Or maybe they get really sad sometimes and need extra hearts just in case one breaks." Before Cormac could figure out a suitable parental response to that unexpectedly profound statement, she had already moved on. "I'm gonna look at the horse books now. There's one about a horse on a beach, and I need to see if she's okay because last time, there was a storm coming." She took off toward the narrow stacks, her long brown hair escaping from her ponytail, her worn sneakers squeaking faintly on the polished linoleum floor. Cormac watched her go. This fierce, small person who had somehow kept him standing when everything else in his life had collapsed into ruin. She had Celia's eyes, his late wife's eyes, that same unwavering way of looking at the world as if it were still full of magic and miracles, even when it had given them every justifiable reason to stop believing. He wandered aimlessly toward the new releases section, not truly looking for anything specific, just killing time until Poppy needed him to explain a complex word, or help her reach a book on a high shelf. And then he saw her. Carrera Collins was standing near the fiction section. She was dressed casually today in fitted jeans and a soft cream sweater, a stark contrast to the formality of Amelia's. She held a book in her hands, something with a vibrant blue cover, and was so absorbed in reading the synopsis on the back that she hadn't noticed him yet. Cormac's first primal instinct was to retreat, to grab Poppy and make a swift, silent escape before Kara saw him, before he had to face that look on her face again. The look that said he had disappointed her in fundamental ways he couldn't quite name or fix. But he had already been a coward once this week. Carrera. She looked up, and the invisible walls immediately slammed back into place around her. You. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see. Cormac maintained a respectful distance, giving her a generous amount of personal space. My daughter and I come here every Saturday, but I couldn't let the moment pass without trying again to apologize. You already apologized, she noted, her voice carefully neutral and flat. I know, but you didn't have the space to hear it properly. He took a steadying breath. What I did was wrong. I knew it was wrong when I agreed to it. You didn't deserve to be part of that scheme. You didn't deserve any of it. Kara studied him for a long, quiet moment, her expression unreadable. Why did you give the money back? How did you know I gave it back? I didn't. The ghost of a fleeting smile, a true, slightly surprised smile, crossed her face before vanishing. I was testing a theory. Before Cormac could begin to process what that cryptic statement meant, a small, excited voice called out from somewhere deep within the stacks. Daddy, the horse is okay. The storm missed her beach, and Poppy came careening around the corner, holding her treasured horse book triumphantly over her head like a trophy. She skidded to a stop when she saw Carrera, her wide eyes momentarily fixated. Oh, hello, Poppy whispered, intrigued. Hello, Carrera replied, and something involuntary in her expression softened visibly, dissolving some of the careful frost around her. Poppy tilted her head, studying Kara with the kind of unself-conscious, pure curiosity that only very young children could manage. You're really little like me. Well, not like me because I'm little because I'm 7, but you're little like a grown-up who's little. Poppy. Cormac started, mortified, his face flushing crimson. But Poppy was already moving closer, her face brightening with a magnificent idea. Are you a fairy? Because in my books, fairies are little and they have magic. And you look like you could have magic. Kara genuinely laughed then. A real, surprised, and beautiful sound. I'm not a fairy, unfortunately. I'm just a person who didn't grow as tall as most people. Oh, Poppy nodded seriously, as if this made perfect, simple sense. My daddy's body works differently, too. Sometimes he gets really tired because he works at nighttime and his back hurts a lot. And one time, he cried in the kitchen when he thought I wasn't looking. But I was looking because I needed water. Poppy. Cormac's voice cracked in desperation. What? You always say I should tell the truth. She looked between them, confused by the sudden tension she could sense but did not understand. Kara was looking at Cormac differently now, not with anger or suspicion, but with something closer to deep, empathic recognition. What's your name? She asked Poppy, crouching down slightly. Poppy May Henley. What's yours? Carrera. That's a pretty name, Poppy smiled, revealing the gap where she'd recently lost a tooth. It sounds fancy, like a princess or something. Thank you. Kara crouched further, bringing her nearly eye to eye with the child. What book did you find? It's about Seashell. She's a horse who lives on a beach, and there was going to be a big storm, but it missed her, and now she's okay. Poppy held up the book proudly. Do you want to see? There's pictures and everything. I'd love to see. And just like that, without hesitation, Poppy grabbed Carrera's hand and pulled her toward the children's section, chattering the entire way about horses and beaches and storms, and how sometimes things unexpectedly work out even when you think they won't. Cormac followed at a discreet distance, watching his daughter, who had been instinctively wary of strangers ever since Celia died, warm up to Kara like they had known each other forever, connected by some invisible current of understanding. In the brightly colored children's section, Poppy patiently showed Kara every single book she had picked out. She explained in great detail why the octopus book was scientifically important, why the dragon book was inherently funny, and why the one about the girl who talked to trees made her cry in a good way. Kara listened intently to all of it, asking thoughtful questions, making gentle observations, treating Poppy's boundless enthusiasm as if it were the most crucial information she would receive all day. Finally, Poppy crashed entirely in a large beanbag chair shaped like a friendly frog, the horse book open on her lap, her eyelids already starting to droop from the sheer force of her excitement. Kara stood up, and Cormac walked over quietly. "She really likes you," he murmured. "She's wonderful." Kara's voice was soft, honest in a way most adults forget how to be. "That's Poppy. She doesn't know how to be anything else." They stood there in a comfortable, easy silence for a moment, watching Poppy fight the pull of sleep and inevitably lose. "I come here most Saturdays," Kara said, not quite looking at him, studying the spines of the nearby books. "For a book club. We meet at 10:30. We're usually here by 9, Cormac replied, instantly understanding the quiet invitation. "So, if we happen to run into each other again, I wouldn't be opposed to that," she finished for him, a slight, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. She looked at him then, really looked at the exhausted father standing before her. "I don't forgive you. Not yet. But I'm not saying never either. That's more than I deserve. Probably." But she was definitely smiling now. "See you next Saturday." "Maybe." "Maybe," Cormac agreed, a profound lightness settling where the cold dread had been. She walked away toward the book club meeting, leaving him standing there. Cormac sat down next to Poppy's beanbag chair, his mind spinning with unexpected hope. "Daddy?" Poppy's sleepy voice drifted up, muffled by the beanbag. "Yeah, sweetheart. Miss Kara is nice. I like her." "Me too, Poppy. Me too." The next Saturday they ran into each other again. Poppy spotted Kara first, letting out a delighted squeal that made several nearby patrons turn and glare. "Miss Kara, Miss Carrera, you came back. I told you I would be here," Kara said, laughing genuinely as Poppy barreled into her for a joyful hug. It became an unexpected pattern. 3 Saturdays turned into 4, into 8. Poppy would enthusiastically commandeer Kara for the first hour, showing her new books and convincing her to participate in elaborate make-believe games that involved being dragons, or pirates, or brilliant scientists discovering new planets. Then Poppy would inevitably crash, worn out from the intensity of her own enthusiasm, and the adults would finally talk. Slowly, carefully, like people learning to trust something incredibly fragile, they began to tell each other their stories. Kara told him about growing up different, about being the only kid in her elementary school with achondroplasia, about the constant battle with stares, the endless, rude questions, and the older kids who had casually made her the punchline of jokes she didn't understand until much later. "My parents tried," she confided one Saturday in May, when the weather had finally warmed enough that they could sit outside on the library's quiet stone patio. "They loved me fiercely, but they didn't always know how to protect me from a world that saw me, inherently, as less than." She recounted her college days, earning a full academic scholarship to Georgetown, and then finding her footing in challenging nonprofit work, learning to advocate relentlessly for herself and for others with disabilities. And she revisited the agonizing landscape of dating, about men who openly fetishized her height, who were embarrassed to be seen with her in public, or who revealed their true, shallow colors in 1,000 small, cumulative cruelties. "I stopped trying 2 years ago," she admitted, looking out at the sunlit street. "It honestly seemed easier to be alone than to keep hoping for something different and being proven wrong every single time." In return, Cormac told her about Celia. He told her about falling instantly in love at 23 with a woman who laughed too loud during serious movies, cried during emotionally manipulative commercials, and made the single best chocolate chip cookies he had ever tasted. He told her about the debilitating headaches that started shortly after Poppy turned 3, about the terrifying diagnosis that came like a sledgehammer, a rare autoimmune disease that was progressive, unpredictable, and devastatingly expensive, about watching his wife's beautiful body betray her, watching her fight with every ounce of strength she possessed, and watching her lose anyway. "She died on a Sunday morning," he said, his voice only shaking a little now, practiced in the telling. "It was spring. The window was open, and I could hear birds singing in the old apple tree she'd planted herself. Poppy was thankfully at my parents' house. I was holding Celia's hand, and I felt the exact moment she left." Kara reached across the small wrought iron table and silently took his hand. She didn't say anything because there was nothing adequate to say, But the simple, solid contact was enough. The medical bills destroyed us, Cormac continued, focusing on her touch. I thought I was prepared. I thought I'd done everything right to protect us. But it wasn't enough. We lost the house. I lost my steady job. We ended up in a tiny, one-bedroom apartment above a loud, constantly running laundromat with a 4-year-old who kept asking when Mommy was finally coming home. How did you tell her? Kara asked quietly, her thumb gently stroking the back of his hand. I said that Mommy's body stopped working, but that her love for Poppy would never stop, that she was watching from somewhere we couldn't see, like a very bright star. He swallowed hard, remembering the sheer pain of that conversation. Poppy asked if Mommy could still see her dreams. I said yes. I don't know if that's true, but I said yes. They sat in silence for a long while, both of them carrying the profound, indelible weight of their respective histories. Poppy saved me, Cormac finally admitted. After Celia died, there were so many days I just wanted to give up, to stop trying. But every single morning, this tiny person needed me, needed breakfast and clean clothes, and help tying her complicated shoes. She needed me to be okay. So, I learned how to be okay even when I absolutely wasn't. Children keep us anchored, Kara said softly, releasing his hand and leaning back slightly. They need us so completely that we don't have the luxury of drowning. In June, when the weather was truly summer, Kara invited them to her apartment to meet Biscuit, her lazy, affectionate orange tabby cat. The apartment was located in a beautifully renovated building near downtown Wilmington, boasting high ceilings and huge, magnificent windows that let in floods of natural light. Kara had adapted the space meticulously and thoughtfully. There were lower, custom-built countertops in the kitchen, carefully scaled furniture, everything arranged for maximum accessibility without ever sacrificing sophisticated style. This place is amazing, Cormac said, genuinely impressed as he looked around. I designed most of it myself, Kara admitted, a trace of pride in her voice. It took a while to find an architect who understood that accessible design didn't have to mean ugly or institutional. It had to feel like home. Doesn't have to mean medical or institutional. Can just mean a safe place to land. Poppy was already settled on the floor, curled against the oversized armchair, having been officially adopted by Biscuit. The cat, who apparently held the only veto power in the apartment, had decided Poppy was acceptable and was now vibrating against her side, purring like a meticulously maintained small engine. Kara watched the interaction, a soft, private smile on her face. He likes you, she observed. I think he's magic, Poppy whispered back, her voice filled with hushed awe, petting Biscuit with the kind of gentle reverence usually reserved for viewing rare, ancient artifacts under glass. Kara had spent the late afternoon meticulously setting up a scavenger hunt around the apartment just for Poppy. There were little watercolor clues hidden behind books and beneath cushions that led to small, inexpensive prizes. A bouncy ball, a pack of stickers, and eventually culminated in a plate stacked high with homemade chocolate chip cookies, still warm from the oven. You didn't have to do all this, Cormac murmured, leaning against the kitchen archway, watching Poppy dart around the living room with an exuberance that made his chest ache. A sweet, painful kind of happiness he hadn't felt in years. I wanted to, Kara responded simply, drying her hands on a dish towel. It was a statement of intention, not obligation. They had dinner, a rich, fragrant pasta that Kara had painstakingly made from scratch, rolling out the dough earlier that day. Poppy helped by stirring the sauce, taste testing every 5 minutes, and providing a running, loud commentary on the optimal structural integrity of the noodles. Afterward, they collapsed onto the couch to watch a movie. Somewhere in the middle of a predictable alien invasion, the relentless energy of the day caught up to Poppy. She fell asleep, completely out, her small body pressed deep into the cushions, with Biscuit curled protectively on her chest, a fluffy, watchful sentinel. Cormac and Kara relocated to the kitchen, settling across from each other with mugs of strong herbal tea. The silence that fell between them was easy, comfortable, the kind shared by people who had learned they didn't need to frantically fill every quiet moment with sound. I need to tell you something, Kara said suddenly, setting her mug down with a small, careful click. Cormac looked up, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, a new gravity settling around them. My last name isn't Collins. She watched his face, gauging his reaction. Well, it is legally. I changed it years ago, but I was born Kara Hayes. She took a deep, steadying breath. My father is Lawson Hayes. The name landed between them in the quiet kitchen, heavy and inescapable, like a stone dropped from a great height. Lawson Hayes, founder of Redwood Logistics, a vast global empire, worth not just millions but billions. The kind of person whose name was a permanent fixture in Forbes profiles and Wall Street Journal headlines. The very air seemed to vibrate with the magnitude of the secret. You're an heiress? Cormac stated slowly, the word tasting foreign and strange on his tongue. Technically, Kara admitted, her hands tightening around the warm ceramic mug until her knuckles were white. Do you know what it's like to have that kind of real, inescapable money when you look like me? Every person I've dated, every casual friend I've made, I've always wondered, do they actually care about me or do they just see a walking, talking ATM machine? Do they see dollar signs? She explained the radical shift she made at 23. Changing her name, severing ties with the family estate, deliberately choosing a life that resembled something normal. I have a trust fund, buried deep in some bank vault, that I don't touch except for life or death emergencies. I work because I want the structure and the purpose of work. I live in this perfectly imperfect, slightly noisy apartment because I chose it, not because it was bought and furnished for me. Why are you telling me this now? Cormac asked, his eyes steady, searching her face. Because I like you, she said, stating it matter-of-factly, with the unwavering certainty of declaring a fundamental truth. And I like Poppy. And with you too, for the first time in years I got to be just Kara. Not an heiress. Not a Hayes. Not someone with an invisible giant checkbook attached to my identity. I wasn't ready to give up that freedom. You don't have to give anything up, Cormac promised, reaching across the table to cover her hand with his. Really? There was a flash of something fragile and vulnerable in her eyes. A lifetime of conditioned skepticism. Because most people, when they find out about the money, about my father. I don't care about your father's money, Cormac interrupted, leaning forward, his gaze intense and utterly sincere. I care about the woman who spent 3 hours patiently helping my daughter understand the complex anatomical reasons why owls can turn their heads almost all the way around. I care about the person who remembered that Poppy's absolute favorite color is purple and went out of her way to buy purple napkins for tonight. I care about Kara, not the Hayes fortune. How do you know you mean that? She challenged, the question weighted with experience. You don't, Cormac admitted honestly. But I'm not going anywhere. Your secret is safe with me. And if it takes time for you to truly believe that, I will wait. Kara's eyes became impossibly bright, reflecting the dim kitchen light. Okay. Thank you. She smiled then, a genuine, relieved smile that utterly transformed her face, stripping away years of guarded pretense. From the living room couch, Poppy mumbled something incoherent in her sleep that sounded suspiciously like, Daddy likes Miss Kara. They both laughed quietly, a warm, conspiratorial sound, careful not to wake her. Summer passed in a warm, quick blur of library Saturdays, impromptu weeknight dinners, and Poppy's endless, charmingly detailed questions about everything from the deep sea to deep space. In the months that followed, Kara quietly and subtly began using her connections to help Cormac find a new, sustainable path. She never offered money, only opportunity. She mentioned, almost offhand, that a friend who ran a large, reputable construction company was actively looking for someone with proven project management experience. Would Cormac be interested in an introduction, purely professional? The interview, which Cormac prepared for with obsessive detail, went exceptionally well. The job offered significantly better pay than driving a delivery truck, regular daytime hours, a comprehensive benefits package, and clear room for advancement. I don't know how to thank you, Cormac said. The day he received the formal offer letter, he felt an overwhelming mix of gratitude and relief. You don't have to thank me, Kara insisted, waving a dismissive hand. I just made an introduction. You got the job because you are good at what you do, Cormac. They recognized your worth. For the first time in 3 years, Cormac felt like he could breathe without the heavy, crushing sensation that he was constantly drowning just beneath the surface. He moved Poppy into a 2-bedroom apartment in a safer, quieter neighborhood, bought her new, sturdy shoes that actually fit, and enrolled her in an after-school art program she had been begging to join. "Daddy, are we rich now?" Poppy asked one evening, surveying their new living room with huge, curious eyes. "No, sweetheart," Cormac chuckled, tucking her hair behind her ear. "But we're okay. And being okay is pretty great." "Being okay is very good," Poppy agreed seriously, nodding. Then, with the lightning-fast subject change characteristic of childhood, she leaned in conspiratorially. "I think Miss Kara likes you. Likes you. "Oh? What makes you say that?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Because she gets all pink when you say nice things?" Poppy explained, listing the evidence on her fingers. "And she laughs at your jokes, even the ones that are not that funny. And yesterday, when you weren't looking, she was looking at you like how the princess looks at the prince in my books. You are very observant, little one." "I know," Poppy grinned, puffing out her chest. "So, do you like her too? Like her? Cormac paused, the weight of the question settling over him. He thought about the easy music of Kara's laugh, the intense, focused way she listened, as if every word he said mattered deeply. He remembered how she had shown up unannounced at his old apartment when Poppy had the flu, armed with homemade chicken soup, flat ginger ale, and a calm, capable offer to help. He thought about the way his chest felt suddenly too tight, too small, whenever she smiled directly at him. "Yeah," he finally admitted, his voice quiet but sure. "I do." "Then you should tell her," Poppy stated, as if this were the most obvious, straightforward calculus in the universe. "It's more complicated than that, sweetheart." "Why?" And there it was, the single, simple question to which he had no easy or good answer. Why was it complicated? Because he was terrified. Because the last time he had allowed himself to love someone completely, he had lost her, and the resulting grief had nearly destroyed him. Because Kara, who was brave and whole and accomplished, deserved someone better than a man who still occasionally woke up in the dark, reaching instinctively for a wife who wasn't there anymore. Because grown-up feelings are messy, he finally managed. "Feelings are always messy," Poppy said, with the solemn wisdom of an 80-year-old sage. "That's why they're called feelings." Fall came early that year, painting the urban trees in dramatic shades of burnt gold, brilliant orange, and deep crimson. Poppy started 2nd grade, wearing new, properly fitting shoes and carrying a backpack that wasn't held together with frayed duct tape. She quickly made friends, joined the library's reading program, and came home every day with verbose, enthusiastic stories that made Cormac's heart feel too expansive for his chest cavity. And every Saturday morning they went, without fail, to the public library. It was a Saturday in late October, the kind of crisp autumn day where the air was cold and sharp, making colors feel more vivid and thoughts clearer, when things finally undeniably shifted. Poppy had discovered a captivating new book series about a girl who could communicate telepathically with animals. She had immediately dragged Kara off to the children's stacks to show her every single volume in the collection. Cormac watched them from across the colorful expanse of the children's section. His daughter's animated gestures, Kara's focused, patient attention, and felt a profound sense of rightness settle deep in his soul. Later, after Poppy had inevitably fallen asleep in a giant beanbag chair with a hardcover book about wolves resting open on her lap, Kara and Cormac settled onto a low bench nearby. They sat close enough that their shoulders occasionally brushed, a familiar, comforting contact. "I need to tell you something," Cormac said, the words suddenly urgent, needing release. "I think I know," Kara said softly, leaning her head toward him. "Poppy informed me that you practice talking to me in the bathroom mirror, and that you say my name in your sleep." Cormac covered his face with his hands, groaning in sheer embarrassment. "I am going to have a very serious, lengthy conversation with that child about personal boundaries and privacy." Kara laughed, a low, rich sound, and gently pulled his hands away from his face. I practice too, you know? I've been waiting for you to say something for about 2 months now. Really? Really? She was looking at him with an expression that made his pulse immediately double time. So, say it. I want. Cormac started, then stopped, feeling suddenly too awkward for words. He tried again, forcing the air out. I very much want, if you do. I do, Kara confirmed instantly, her eyes shining. Cormac, I really, really do. He kissed her then. It was gentle, tentative, and achingly sweet, like touching something immensely precious that might shatter if handled with even a fraction too much force. When they finally pulled apart, Kara was beaming, a radiance that lit up the whole corner of the library. That, she said breathlessly, took you long enough. I was trying to be respectful, he murmured, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. From across the room, a stage whisper boomed. You can be respectful and still kiss me. I knew it. Daddy and Miss Kara are in love. Poppy came charging over, apparently not nearly as asleep as they'd assumed, flinging herself at both of them with enough momentum to nearly knock the air out of their lungs. Does this mean Miss Kara is going to be my new mommy? She asked, her face lifted up to theirs. So hopeful, so radiant with possibility that it actually hurt Cormac's heart to look at. Let's take it one step at a time, sweetheart, Cormac said, holding her close. But he was looking over Poppy's head at Kara, who was looking back with an expression that made him think maybe, possibly, someday wasn't nearly as far away as he had always believed. 2 weeks later, Kara asked Cormac to meet her father. You absolutely don't have to, she said quickly, sensing his sudden tension. I know it's a lot. Lawson Hayes is, fundamentally, a lot. But he wants to meet you, and I think you should know exactly what you're getting into if we're going to seriously do this. We're doing this, Cormac confirmed, tightening his grip on her hand. Yeah, we are. They drove out to the Hayes estate on a Saturday afternoon. Poppy was safely occupied at a classmate's birthday party, giving them a few crucial hours alone. The house was exactly what Cormac had grimly expected. Sprawling, aggressively intimidating, a massive structure that definitely had a formal name carved into granite instead of just a street address. But Lawson Hayes himself was a profound surprise. He was in his late 60s, with steel-gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes, but he met them right at the monumental front door himself, forgoing the assistance of staff. You must be Cormac, he said, extending a hand that was surprisingly rough, warm, and firm. I've heard a great deal about you. All good things, I hope. My daughter, Lawson said, smiling at Kara with an obvious, deep-seated affection, doesn't waste her time on bad things. Come in. I promise I am significantly less intimidating than the house suggests. They had lunch, which Lawson had apparently cooked himself. A detail that surprised Cormac immensely. Over simple, delicious food they talked. About the brutal demands of running Redwood Logistics, about Cormac's new project management role, and, inevitably, about Poppy and her latest all-consuming obsession with wolves. Kara tells me you're a single father, Lawson observed, studying Cormac across the mahogany table. That can't be easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, Cormac admitted without hesitation. But it's also, by far, the most important. Lawson nodded, a faint flicker of approval in his eyes. My daughter is important to me. The single most important thing, actually. So, I need to know that you understand precisely what you're getting into. Dad, Kara started, sensing the shift in tone. No, it's okay, Cormac said, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. He looked directly at Lawson, meeting the billionaire's famously intense gaze head-on. I am not after your money. I am not trying to use Kara for connections, or social climbing, or anything else. I am a construction project manager who drives a 10-year-old Honda and lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. But I care about your daughter a lot, Mr. Hayes, and I am entirely willing to earn your trust. Slowly, over time, if that's what it takes. The silence that followed felt utterly eternal, lasting perhaps for seconds, but stretching into an agonizing lifetime. Then Lawson smiled, a real smile, warm, genuine, and surprisingly unguarded. "Good answer," he said. "Kara told me you were honest. I appreciate that." The rest of lunch was significantly easier. Lawson told endearing stories about Kara as a wildly intelligent, stubbornly independent child. Kara rolled her eyes dramatically but didn't correct him, which Cormac took as absolute proof that the stories were true. As they were leaving, Lawson pulled Cormac aside on the sweeping front porch. "Take care of her," he said quietly, his voice dropping to a serious tone. "She's tougher than she looks, but she's also been hurt more than most people realize. Don't add to that, Cormac." "I won't," Cormac promised, the vow heavy with sincerity. In the car, driving away from the intimidating estate, Kara was quiet for a long time. "That went well, I think," Cormac tentatively ventured. "He likes you." She sounded genuinely shocked, still processing. "Is that bad?" "No, it's just, he doesn't like anyone," she explained, releasing a long breath. "He's suspicious of every person who gets close to me, and for genuinely good reason. Most people fail his test." She reached over and took Cormac's hand, lacing their fingers together. "But he likes you, which means you must be doing something profoundly right." "I'm just being myself." "I know." She squeezed his hand. "That's what I love about you." The word, *love*, hung suspended in the air between them, vibrating with unspoken meaning. "Love?" Cormac repeated softly, searching her eyes. Kara's eyes widened immediately. I did mean it, but I didn't mean to say it yet. It just slipped out." "I love you, too," Cormac said, the declaration feeling like the most natural, true thing he had ever uttered. She stared at him, tears welling up instantly. "Really? Really?" "I have for a while now," he confessed. "I just didn't know if it was too soon, or if you'd want to hear it, or—" She cut him off, kissing him right there in the car, just outside her father's massive driveway. It was a fierce, joyful kiss, and it felt precisely like coming home. Winter arrived with the first delicate snows of early December. Cormac's life looked completely unrecognizable compared to just 9 months earlier. A challenging, fulfilling job, stable, safe housing. A daughter who was not just surviving but thriving, and Kara, brilliant, fierce, infinitely wonderful Kara, who had somehow seen past his worst, most desperate moments to the man he was determined to become. They had begun talking about the future in quiet, private moments when Poppy was asleep and the world felt contained entirely within the two of them. They discussed what forever might look like, about building something new that honored the past without ever being trapped by it. On a cold Saturday morning in February, exactly 1 year after that catastrophic, ill-fated first date at Emilio's, Cormac took Kara back to the library where everything had irrevocably changed. Poppy was spending the weekend with Cormac's parents, giving them the rare, exquisite luxury of time alone. "Why are we here?" Kara asked, laughing warmly as he led her toward the bright, rainbow-carpeted children's section. "Because this is where you gave me a second chance," Cormac explained, guiding her between the low bookshelves. "This is where Poppy asked if you were a fairy. And this is where I started believing that maybe, just maybe, I deserved something good after all." He knelt down in front of her, right there between the beanbag chairs and the picture books, and pulled out a small velvet box from his coat pocket. "Kara Collins, Kara Hayes, whatever name you want to use." His voice shook slightly with emotion. "Will you marry me?" She was already crying before he finished the question. "Yes. Yes, of course. Yes." The ring was simple. A single brilliant diamond set on a polished silver band. It wasn't ostentatious, but when he slipped it onto her finger, it felt like a silent, solid promise that went infinitely deeper than jewelry. "Poppy is going to absolutely lose her mind," Kara said, laughing through her tears. "She helped me pick out the ring," Cormac admitted, pulling her up and into a tight hug. "She said it needed to be sparkly, but not too sparkly, because you're fancy, but not fancy. That child is terrifyingly perceptive," Kara noted, wiping her eyes. "I know." He kissed her tenderly. "So, when do you want to do this?" "Soon," Kara insisted, gripping his hand tightly. "I don't want to wait." They were married on a Saturday in late March, exactly 1 year and 1 month after Cormac had walked into Emilio's, carrying desperation and an immense burden of shame. It was a small, intimate ceremony held in the botanical garden downtown, where the first early spring flowers were just beginning to bloom and the air smelled like damp earth and endless possibility. Kara wore a simple, elegant cream-colored dress that made her look like she had stepped directly out of a dream. Her father walked her down the stone aisle, his sharp eyes suspiciously bright, and when he placed her hand in Cormac's, he whispered something that made Kara giggle softly. Poppy was the flower girl, wearing a brilliant purple dress she had adamantly insisted on picking out herself. She took her job with the utmost seriousness, scattering rose petals with the focus and precision usually reserved for important scientific experiments. The guest list was small, deliberately curated: Cormac's parents, a handful of close friends, Kara's father and stepmother, and colleagues from her nonprofit. It was a collection of people who truly mattered, people who had walked with them through the hard, broken parts of their lives. The officiant was a woman Kara had worked closely with for years, someone who deeply understood the profound significance of this moment. "Love," she said, looking warmly at Cormac and Kara, "isn't always the perfect fairy tale we imagine in books. Sometimes it is messy, complicated, and born directly from our most broken moments. But that doesn't make it less real. If anything, it makes it more precious, more hard-won." Cormac's vows were heartfelt and simple, his voice clear. "Kara, a year ago I was a man who had forgotten how to hope. I had accepted that survival was the very best I could expect from life. And then you met me. You had every reason to write me off, to protect yourself from someone who had proven he could make terrible choices. But you didn't. You gave me a second chance I truly didn't deserve. You saw past my worst moment to the person I was desperately trying to become. I promised to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift. I promised to show up, to choose you, and to build a life with you that honors both our histories without being defined solely by them. I promised to love Poppy with you, to raise her to be as brave and honest and kind as you are. And I promised that every single day, I will be profoundly grateful that fate decided to give us another chance." Kara's vows, delivered with a trembling sincerity, made nearly everyone cry. "Cormac, when I met you, I had built walls so high around myself that I had completely forgotten what it felt like to be vulnerable. I had decided that being alone was inherently safer than risking disappointment again. And then there you were, honest about your mistakes, willing to face the consequences, and showing up every single time, even when it was hard. You taught me that second chances aren't about erasing the past. They are about consciously choosing to write a different, better future. You and Poppy gave me something I had long ago stopped believing in. A family built on fierce honesty, deep laughter, and showing up for each other, even when things are messy. I promised to love you through the hard days and the good ones. I promised to be patient when Poppy asks me for the 1,000th time if Biscuit can really talk to her telepathically. I promised to remember that we are all just doing our best, and that grace and forgiveness are the true foundations of real love. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for staying. Thank you for choosing me." When they kissed, officially married, Poppy cheered so loudly that everyone erupted into laughter. The reception was held at a small, elegant restaurant nearby. The atmosphere was warm, the food excellent, the company even better, the kind of genuine celebration that felt earned. Lawson Hayes gave a brief, powerful toast that gracefully acknowledged the unconventional beginning of their relationship without dwelling on the pain. "Sometimes," he said, raising his glass, "the worst moments in our lives crack us open just enough to finally let the light in. Here's to my daughter and her new family. May you always, always choose each other." Poppy also gave an impromptu toast, standing proudly on a chair so everyone could see her. "I knew Daddy and Kara were going to get married before they even knew it," she announced with pride, "because I could tell they were in love even when they were being weird about it. And now we're a real family, which means Biscuit is officially my brother, and I'm very happy about that." The resulting laughter was full of boundless affection. As the evening began to wind down, Cormac and Kara stepped onto the restaurant's patio, watching the fiery sunset cast long shadows over the city skyline. A year ago, I had $47 to my name and absolutely no hope, Cormac said quietly, leaning against the railing. And now? Kara leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. Now I have everything. He kissed the top of her hair. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Thank you for being worth it. Inside, through the large patio window, they could see Poppy dancing energetically with Lawson, her purple dress twirling as she laughed. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was infinitely better than a fairy tale. It was real. It was messy. It was built painstakingly from broken pieces that had somehow fit together into something breathtakingly beautiful. And it was unequivocally theirs. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever needed a second chance or been brave enough to give one, leave a comment below. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that our worst moments don't have to define us, that healing is truly possible, and that love finds us in the most unexpected places, often when we aren't even looking for it. And if you believe in stories that prove broken people can find beautiful new chapters, don't forget to subscribe to Everbell Stories, because everyone deserves to remember that redemption is real, that dignity matters, and that sometimes the worst decision of your life can lead you exactly where you were always meant to be. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing. And remember, it's never too late to become the person you wished you'd been all along.